Hey everybody, welcome to this video. This is the video for Module 29 for Business Math and Calculators. And in this video, we are going to talk about markups. Um, Markups are essentially a percent type problem where you are doing an increase in percent. You're essentially taking like the cost of an item and marking it up to a higher cost that you ultimately sell that item for. So that's kind of the context in which we will be working. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. We'll go through a couple of sample problems and we'll go from there. So let's get started. All right, so markups. Let's look at our first sample problem. So what we've got is a situation where a car dealership purchased a vehicle from the factory, from the manufacturer, for $15,500. The dealership then is going to mark that price up in order to sell it and obviously cover things like overhead and to make a profit and all those kinds of things. And so what they're going to do is they're going to mark the price up by 25%. Now notice in parentheses we've got that little phrase on cost. What that basically means is we're using 25% of what it costs the dealership to actually purchase the item. Okay, you can do markups on selling price, so you can kind of go both ways, but I think the most common application is to do percent markups on the cost of the item to figure out what that selling price should be. So that's what we're going to focus on in this problem and in these examples. All right, so the question wants us to figure out what will be the selling price for the vehicle. All right, so essentially what we need to do is, as a first step, we got to figure out how much they're going to increase the price by. We want to figure out what that markup is. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find what 25% is, or what 25% of 15,500 is. All right, so we're going back to the whole of is kind of problem that involves a percentage. So here in our work that we're showing on the screen, notice that we always convert a percent into a decimal, or you could do a fraction, but decimals are the easier way to convert it. And we simply multiply. So we're going to take 0.25 times 15,500. And when you do that, you come up with a value of $3,875. So that's how much we're essentially going to add on to the cost to determine our selling price. Okay, so by doing 25% of the 15,500, that tells us how much we're going to mark the price up. Now, in order to figure out what the actual selling price is, there's one more step, and that is to do some addition. We're going to take the cost plus the markup, and that'll tell us what we're going to sell it for. So in this case, $19,375. And there you go. That's what you got to do. So the key thing with the markup, again, is figuring out what the percentage is of the original amount and then adding that on to figure out what that selling price is. And so there's our final answer when all said and done. All right, next sample problem. This time, we're going to work in reverse. Okay, so this time we are given a situation where the furniture store purchases its furniture from the manufacturer. And when they do that, they mark up their items by 40% on cost to determine the selling price. Now this time what we know is we are told what the selling price is for a sofa, in this case, $3,500. So what we want to do is we want to work backwards and figure out what the furniture store actually paid to purchase it. So what the furniture store's cost was when they got it from the manufacturer. Okay? So this gets a little bit tricky. So we got to be careful when we set this up. So here's the equation that we're going to solve. Now what we're going to do is, again, it's an of is kind of situation. We're going to take a percent times essentially the original amount to figure out what the selling price is going to be. So what we've done is notice that we're using 1.40, or essentially remember that with like percent increases, which is essentially what a markup is, you always start with the original amount as being 100%, and then we can add on whatever that increase is, that markup. So if we have 100% plus the 40% markup, that's 140%, or 1.40 when you translate it into a decimal. Now we're taking that percent times the original amount, and that's what we don't know, so that's why it's the variable x in this case. And then when all is said and done, we will end up getting the selling price, which is $3,500. Okay, so it takes a little bit of work to set up the equation, getting the right percentages in there, getting the numbers in the right spots. But once you do that, then you're left with a pretty simple one-step equation. We need to divide both sides by 1.40 to get the variable by itself. And when we do that, we come up with a value of $2,500. And there you go. That is what we're looking for. That is the amount that the furniture store actually paid for the sofa. They then marked up that price by the 40%, and that got the $3,500. Okay. Now, if you want to check your answer on a problem like this, you know, especially working backwards can be tricky. So going back and checking your answer to make sure it makes sense can be a good plan of attack. You can go and basically kind of do this problem like we did in sample problem number 1, and start with the $2,500, and then figure out what 40% is of 2,500, and then add that on to the 2,500 to see if it does in fact give you the new selling price. 40% of 2,500 is 1,000. And 1,000 plus 2,500 is the 3,500. And so again, if you think through the problem and kind of go back and double check to make sure your answer makes sense, it does work out, and we're good to go. All right, let's take a look at one more problem in this video. All right, so this time, again, we're still dealing with markups. It says an electronics store sells stereo systems. The store pays $560 for a particular system, but then resells them for $728. So they mark up the price from $560 to $728. We want to figure out what the percent markup is. So this time what we're doing is we're looking for the percent. In the other two problems, one we were looking for the selling price, one we were looking for the cost, the original purchase price by the company. Here we're looking for the percent markup. Okay. So we're going to set up again kind of an of-is problem, and what we always do is we take the percent times the original amount. So in this case, our original amount is what the store pays for it, and that's going to then equal the selling price. Okay, so our variable is where the percent is at, or the decimal version of that percent. And then we're going to take that times 560 and set it equal to 728. Again, once you get things in the right spot, the equation is fairly straightforward to solve. It's a one-step equation where we need to divide. When you do that, we get 1.30. That's the decimal version. So now what we need to do is just think about what that means in the context of our problem. First thing, we can translate 1.30 into a percent. It's 130%. So we found 130% of 560 is 728. So again, we have to think about the whole increase in percent kind of situation. 100% corresponds to the original amount. And so if we do a quick subtraction, the actual markup percentage was 30%. We did 30% of the original and then added that on to the original to get the new selling price. So the answer that we're ultimately looking for in this problem is a 30% markup. 30% is the answer. So again, you do need to think carefully about what your percent means. And again, with these markup situations, think about the fact that the original price corresponds to 100%, and then the additional percent that is used is added on to that 100% when you go to do the calculation. All right, so there you go. We just calculated markups in 3 different situations where we were finding kind of each of the different potential pieces of these problems. We found the selling price in one problem. We found the cost in one problem. We found the percent markup in another problem. So kind of those 3 chunks that are always fit together to make up your problems. It just depends on the situation, which one of those things that you happen to be looking for. So hopefully these examples illustrated what you have to do in each of those situations. I cannot stress enough the importance of checking your work, making sure that your answer makes sense in the context of the problem. And like always, if you are working through these problems and you're getting confused or you're getting stuck, please reach out and ask. I am always happy to help. But like I said, hopefully this video gives you a little bit of clarity and helps give you some examples to work off of as you are solving problems on your own. With that, I will wish you a good day, and I will catch you in the next video.